Namaskar. Hello and welcome to P Guru's channel. I'm your host Sri Iyer. Joining me today is Utsav Chakrabarti, and we are going to talk about this new petition that the IAMC, our favorite alphabet soup organization, Indian American Muslim Council, has started that say no to Modi's trip to the United States. It's supposed to take place on the 22nd of June, and the White House has reconfirmed that everything is on, but these people don't stop. They keep persisting. Let us take a look at the motives, and even if the egg falls on their face, what do? Well, let us have Utsav Chakrabarti analyze it for us. Utsav, namaskar and welcome to P Guru's channel.
Namaskar, Shri, and happy to be back.
So, Utsav, IAMC blatantly associated themselves with Rahul Gandhi. In fact, it is my contention, perhaps yours too, that they bust in all the crowds for what happened in New York for Rahul Gandhi's event. They made a big deal out of the fact that his face showed up in the Times Square. Big deal. You pay money, you can get anything you want there. Rahul Gandhi, Emperor of the Universe. So what? So talk to us a little bit about this latest initiative. They know fully well that the United States government is not going to back down on this. This is a state visit. It's a known thing. So why are they still persisting, fully well knowing that they're going to lose in this?
My understanding is that they don't have a choice. See, the thing with the IAMC is that, they are the front end or the India-facing end of a larger pan-Islamist movement. And they, in any small department in a big company, what happens is if the small department doesn't jump around and show that it's doing something useful, the funding from the big company bosses don't show up. So I believe that the problem that IAMC faces now is that, it is a small India-facing front end of a larger pan-Islamist network. And, before I have come on this show and other guests of yours have discussed in detail how IAMC is part of the larger Jamaat-e-Islami Muslim Brotherhood network. So they are just doing things at this point to make sure that, their supporters and their backers continue to consider them useful and continue to push forward, and the required amount of support that they need to look visible. Because, at this point of time, if you really see, the White House has fully embraced this as the state visit, the first state visit actually for Prime Minister Modi. I actually wrote down a few points, one of which was that this is the first time Prime Minister Modi is actually coming on a state visit and is getting a state reception at the White House. The previous such state visit from anybody from India was Prime Minister Dr. Manmohan Singh in 2009. And the next one, the previous one before that, actually, interestingly, is the President of India, Dr. Radhakrishnan, many, many decades ago. I think he was the second president of India, the first president of India, and he was the first Indian leader to have a state visit. So state visits are rare, and this is something very unique that the White House is doing, which tells you a couple of things. It tells us the importance of India in the current geopolitical setup around the world. The old world order is not exactly what it used to be before, and it's changing very rapidly. And India has taken a very critical role in this. I think even somebody like President Biden, who otherwise has not been that eager to, embrace Prime Minister Modi, is also eagerly looking forward to it, which is a very nice shift in the right direction.
Utsav, I'm reminded of a dialogue from Sholay. This is for IAMC benefit because we kind of moved away from that. But I wanted to say this right when you were talking about IAMC, but I didn't want to interrupt your flow. So this is like, Kam karo, varna gabbar aayega. So there's a fear that I have to show that I am working. Otherwise, my funding is in peril. Now, IAMC, these links have been written up quite a bit. We know that they have some chinks in their armor. Let's first talk about why this is so important for the United States. You said that India today is the only bright spot in an otherwise gloomy global economic scenario. That is very true. Now, what do you think Modi did right to land himself in this place today?
I think the most important, in my opinion, the most important quality that the current government of India and the people of India have shown under Prime Minister Modi's leadership is the ability to change with times. India is a huge country, the largest population in the world. And in the past, one of the weaknesses that India had was lack of flexibility and lack of innovation. I think both these things have changed significantly. I'm not saying they are perfect, obviously that's not the point I'm trying to say. But given the scenario we are in today, I think India is the only bright star in the sky out there. And statistics point that out. And the credit does go to Modi for being flexible and innovative. It's just these two qualities that have made them really stand out.
He zigged when he had to and he zagged when he had to. I get it, especially remembering that, he stood up to the pressure by the United States and still continued to buy crude from Russia. Then he turned that thing into an advantage by refining it in record time and re-exporting it back to the Western Europe and United States. Then they said, okay, so this also worked. I mean, so there is like, I don't like what you did, but I think I'm also liking what you are giving to me in return. So this kind of a flexible attitude, I think, has really made US and the West sit up and take notice that this guy is somebody who's quite sharp. And that's how I see it. I mean, there are many things that I have criticized Modi about. This one especially, of course, it has a risk still that if China were to blatantly come and attack India along the entire 3,400 kilometer corridor, India could be in trouble, at which point it might want to go and ask US for help. But besides that, this is a calculated risk, right? So what he might be, one could even say, that's why even though China is intruding into India, it is applying salami tactics to grab space from India. Modi continues saying, koi aaya nahi, koi gaya nahi, koi aaya nahi, koi gaya nahi, much to the consternation of some people in India. So, I mean, we have to look at this whole thing as one big game that he's playing. We don't know what is going on in his mind. And I don't think Biden or somebody in the United States knows what is going on in Modi's mind. Your thoughts?
So I do believe that this is I credit Prime Minister Modi for his leadership. And I have to say that, even as we speak, there are constantly talks going on between India and China at the commander level in the border. And there has been some de-escalation. It has been publicized much, but there has been significant de-escalation in the border areas. So see, leadership is not about following a playbook. Leadership is about knowing when to make decisions and sticking by them and hopefully winning. And I think that is something unique that Modi has done so far to the best of the results that we can see. And I'm not saying that it is perfect. I'm not saying that nothing can go wrong. But so far what we see is stellar leadership from Prime Minister Modi. I mean, if for most people who follow cricket in India and people have been following the IPL, it's how Dhoni can be considered a leader. It doesn't matter how he fields. It doesn't matter how he bats. There is something unique that Dhoni brings to the table, which is leadership, that makes a huge difference in a team. And I think Modi is the Dhoni of geopolitics, I guess.
Nice allegory there. Okay. So I2U2 group. Talk to us a little bit about this. It has been formed a few months ago. I haven't heard much about it. Kind of walk us through what is happening in this grouping.
So this is a very unique and interesting. I think this is has one of the most potentials in today's world. I had written about a year and a half ago about the India-Arab Med corridor. Where there was it was a parallel to the Belt and Road. It was much more efficient with a lot of sea routes being applied, where India would directly trade with the West, using the access points between the Arabian Sea coast and the Mediterranean Sea coast over land. And I think this is a furthering of that, what used to be a trade route that was being envisioned with the India-Arab Med corridor, into a strategic partnership where India, Israel, and the United Arab Emirates and United States are forming some kind of a tacit alliance that will take care of each other's strategic interests. Now, this is going to be an alliance that will come under a lot of pressure. Because given the fact that the Saudi Arabians and the Emiratis are also moving closer to Iran, and there is the closer alliance building up between Iran, Russia, and Saudi Arabia and the United Arab Emirates. So it's a very complex geopolitical scenario that is emerging. But from India's perspective and from America's perspective, this is, I think, one of the best situations that can happen in the Middle East and in the Indian Ocean. And if India which it is successfully doing right now, builds itself up as a hub, a global hub, or the in the supply chain, I think then India will be in real game and contending with China. And I think that is where the future is when it comes to Prime Minister Modi's leadership, that India should be able to replace China in some ways in many of these supply chain hubs. And this is, I think, a step in the right direction. I hope it works out. There are so many factors that can go wrong, but this is a very solid alliance that can work out.
Now, let us take a quick look at IAMC and why they are doing it. Yes, we said that this is a small cog in a bigger wheel. That cog needs to make its own noise. But these people are relentless, if nothing else. And they don't even make bones of the fact that many of the people that they were bussing into Rahul Gandhi's meetings, whether it was in Santa Clara or whether it was in New York City, were people who didn't have a clue what they were going there for. They were sitting when the national anthem was being played. That gave the game away. But IAMC still persists. What exactly are they trying to convey, Utsav?
So I think they have no choice but to come out and oppose Prime Minister Modi's visit as much as possible, to the extent where they can put power and put pressure. And trust me, they are not powerless. They're extremely influential, extremely powerful, more powerful than most Hindu American entities that are out there. So let me, with full credits to IAMC on that. But it's just that they can't help themselves. Historically, every time when Prime Minister Modi visited, there has been this alliance of organizations that you call the alphabet soup organizations. OFMI, IAMC, and Equality Lab,
ISN, this, that.
ICNA, they all join hands, and the Khalistanis obviously, and they join hands and do a show of force. They will, each one approaches it from a different angle with their own agenda in place. So the Khalistani will approach it from the separatist Khalistani cult movement angle. The IAMC will apply the, India has killed all its Muslim 2 billion, 1 billion Muslims every day, something, outrageous like that. The Kashmiris will do their thing, and the Hizbul Mujahideen supporters will do their thing. They will all join hands and do a dog and pony show, and collect their paychecks from wherever they do it. So this is something that they cannot help. But after Rahul Gandhi came and OFMI and IAMC hosted his press conference at the National Press Club in Washington, D.C., and actually publicly went out along with Hindus for Human Rights, which is another alphabet soup of this organization, taking credit for their Capitol Hill event at the Kennedy Caucus Room. They have to show that they are now doing something to oppose Modi, and this is what they're doing. And I won't be surprised if in this list you will suddenly see the Khalistanis joining, the Kashmiris joining, and there's going to be a whole lot of things that will come into the picture. And I hope that the White House actually stands up to this and gives a solid rebuttal, because at least from the public, this is an insult to the White House as well. So what they are doing is actually insulting President Biden and the White House.
How true is the allegation that there are 2 or 3 groups within the Department of State of the United States, one very severely leaning towards the Pakistani interests, one for Middle East, and one which tries to be neutral? How true is this?
That is, I can believe that to be true, because it is not just unique to this president, but even prior to that, there are power centers in Washington, D.C. that control a lot of foreign policy issues, not necessarily always in the hands of the White House. It is no surprise that George Soros has been so public about his almost visceral hatred for Prime Minister Modi and the leadership that India is giving right now globally. So I won't be surprised that not just within the State Department, but also in the Justice Department, if there is a significant grouping that follows those narratives that are not necessarily the American mainstream narrative. And there could be groups that are very pro-Pakistan. I would say one of the most pro-Pakistani influenced areas in America is not the State Department or the Justice Department or the White House. It's the Pentagon. Because many of the Pentagon generals who are top-level leadership people today went to military colleges and military trainings with Pakistani military generals during the Cold War. and during the Afghan Mujahideen era in the 1980s. So, when you are a young officer, doing training with another young officer from another country at West Point or, North Carolina and one of those places, you do develop bonds and friendship. And the Pakistani military generals do use that in influencing American military leadership and building bonds with them. So I think all branches of America's foreign policy and military posturing has significant lobbies that have pro-Pakistan outlook.
You're bringing an entirely new viewpoint that others haven't thought of, that the generals actually, these people were serving officers perhaps in the 70s and 80s when Russia had occupied Afghanistan. And at that time, US was fighting alongside the Pakistanis to drive the Russians out of Afghanistan. So these ties run deep. And the only thing that I had remembered about something like a wink, wink, nod, nod situation was the Kunduz airlift in 2001, where the Pakistanis said, we have a few people who were helping the Afghans. We would like to evacuate them. And the very kind-hearted generals of United States said, okay. It turned out to be like 20,000 people who had to be airlifted out of Kunduz. So this is a joke. These people were completely running the army in Pakistan in 2001. So anyway, we know that these people harbored Osama bin Laden and al-Zawahiri. Who knows who else? We don't know that. But clearly there is a nexus there. Now, finally, IAMC, the reason why we keep pointing to IAMC is because of some dubious links that they've had. Utsav, tell us a little bit about the recent activities. ISI is very deeply entrenched in these organizations, and I'm being told now that ISI no longer needs the army's funding to sustain itself, that it has become self-sufficient.
I can believe that. See, as I said, the players we are discussing, Soros, for example, has been funding, and now it is quite open. In fact, yesterday there was a very beautiful report that Disinfolab came out with, in which they discussed the Soros funding on the Equality Labs platform. Not just Soros, but also the Omidyar network, which are like the two most active billionaire networks working globally. And India is at the crosshairs of both of them. So all ISI needs at this point is to be just connected to these movements. And these movements also benefit from the ISI's expertise. It's no surprise that one of the most intellectually active India-focused entities in the world would be ISI. Because, they have been generating studies and analysis on India for the last 70 years. In some form or the other, so they do have a lot of expertise in domain knowledge. You have to give credit to where it lies. They hate us, no doubt, but they do have the knowledge, the domain expertise. And who would Pierre Omidyar or Soros want to go to first when they need somebody who has immense domain expertise on India? The natural choice will be somebody who is connected to the ISI. So that is, I think, it is very logical that these partnerships are developing. Since we are discussing IAMC today, IAMC is a small cog in a much larger wheel, as we discussed. It's the India-facing Muslim organization that is part of the Pan-Islamist network. There are India-facing quote-unquote Dalit organizations that are also part of a different network. There is India-facing Khalistani movement. So all these different things are targeting India, and by extension targeting Hindu Americans, which is one of our biggest concerns here. Because Hindu Americans are literally the first thing they want to take down because of their success in this country.
How true is this news that within days of the first arrest of Imran Khan, remember that he was arrested for a couple of days, and then suddenly we saw the people uprising of sorts, and then I heard about 200 to 250 chartered flights took off from Pakistan to UAE and to London. And many were speculating that some of these were actually fake currency that the ISI had printed, and they wanted it out of the hands of whoever they thought was going to be the next person in control. Again, there was a rumor that even Asim Munir might not be in charge of things. Of course, now he has asserted himself. So is it true that 2,000 rupee notes were there in those sorties also? Because days later, we were the first ones to put this thought in the mind of Indian government. The next day, if I remember correctly, they said that 2,000 rupee notes are being officially phased out. It's a different matter that it has not caused a ripple, but the idea was not to say that Indians shouldn't be using 2,000 rupee notes. It was a message to them saying that even this effort of yours is going to be wasted, because now it's going to be not going to be legal tender. Your thoughts?
I do believe there could be some truth to it. Obviously, I'm not privy to the details of how things unfolded, but given the scenario you described, one thing I know for sure is that this is true, that Asif Munir was not in control for a few days. There is a serious schism both in the military as well as the intelligence setup of Pakistan, where for the first time actually they are not working as a unit. Historically, the army used to more or less be a singular unit when it comes to high level decision making, but currently there is a younger officer segment in the Pakistani army that is actually pro Imran Khan, and there is another segment which is now in control, which is anti Imran Khan. So there are lots of things happening in Pakistan, and I won't be surprised if this was the way things panned out with a lot of projects that they were running having to be evacuated into Middle East. Middle East is always a safe haven for Pakistan. Anybody gets kicked out from there goes to Saudi Arabia or UAE.
So. Yes, indeed. And Utsav, it was a fascinating conversation that we had today. Viewers, please like, share, and subscribe to our channel. Don't forget to click on the bell button for notifications. And Utsav has his own organization, and you can donate to his organization, and I'm going to give you the links in the description section of this video. Please consider donating to Hindu Action. Utsav, if you don't mind giving me those things offline, I'll be happy to add those in the description section of this video. Thanks once again. Namaskar.
Thank you, Shri. Namaste. And I would, one parting thought for everybody here, please go ahead and highlight the good things that have happened in India, the good things in India-US relationships over the last 10 years. It is important that your American friends, not just us who are in the small community out here in the Indian American community and the Hindu American community talk about it, but the average American should know the value of a country like India and the value of the American Hindu. And that's very important for us to highlight. So keep the good word going. Thank you. Namaste.